Hey there, welcome to another episode of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today are some Masters of the Universe Origins, I guess we'll call them vehicles, from Mattel. Now, before I get into those, I just want to quickly address my background here. If you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know that I'm doing some painting and some rearranging of furniture and everything downstairs in my toy room where I usually shoot these videos. So today I'm home alone. I figured I might shoot some video segments upstairs in my living room because the thing is I have a bunch of toys that have been piling up in boxes, and I usually like to shoot some footage of them in the box before I open them. But because my room has been such a mess, I haven't really been able to shoot video, and so my toys in boxes are kind of piling up, and I get antsy when I've got toys in boxes. So I'm going to show you my Masters of the Universe vehicles, and then I'm going to shoot a couple other little segments of me showing you some other toys, which won't be in this episode, but they'll be randomly spliced into future episodes. So if all of a sudden you see me back upstairs in my living room wearing the same shirt, it's because I shot them all today. So Masters of the Universe Origins, you're probably well familiar with it by now. It's Mattel's line of like 5-inch He-Man figures based on the old vintage figures from the 80s, except with increased articulation. So, there have been lots of variations and different versions of Masters of the Universe over the years, but these are a total throwback to the original figures. And I have reviewed every wave of figures that's been released so far. I think that's waves 1 through 12, not to mention Castle Grayskull, some previous box sets, some deluxe figures. So this is what we're calling vehicles. Now, even though there's only one here that's a true vehicle. So let's look at that first. So this here is the Ground Ripper with Mekaneck. Now, the Ground Ripper, I think it was called the Road Ripper when I was a kid. I might be wrong about that, but I don't think it was called the Ground Ripper. Anyway, as a kid, it had like and I didn't have this when I was a kid, by the way. I had, quite a few Masters of the Universe figures, but I didn't have many vehicles. So this here, I think you put it on your floor and you put a little plastic, like a little spiky plastic strip, and you pulled the strip out, and that would send the Ground Ripper launching across your kitchen floor or whatever. So this one, it looks pretty close to the vintage one from what I recall, but I don't think it has that kind of pull mechanism that it used to have. So I started off with Origins as a completist, and I was pretty much buying everything that they were putting out. But when they started putting out more and more vehicles, my interest started to wane a little bit because I was thinking, I just don't have the room for this stuff. There's toy lines that I love even more than Masters of the Universe, such as G.I. Joe. And I have all kinds of vehicles from G.I. Joe, but I don't have them on display. They're all in bins, in storage, probably getting broken. It's just I don't have the room for vehicles, and I'm more passionate about figures. So there have been a couple of vehicles that have come out that I have passed on. I might get them eventually, but there was the, what's it called? There's a black spidery looking thing. It's like a circular thing that it's like an enemy vehicle, and I don't know why the name is escaping me right now. But you could buy that vehicle, which I didn't buy. You could also get Point Dread, which is a little attachment to Castle Grayskull, and it comes with the Talon Fighter, which is like a little sort of bird/airplane. I didn't buy that either. I might eventually, because I do have the Origins Castle Grayskull, and it might be kind of cool to snap Point Dread on top of that. But anyway, so the Road Ripper was another one I was thinking of passing on, except for the fact that it comes with Mekaneck. And so far, this is the only way that you can get Mekaneck in the Origins line. And he is a pretty core character, at least in my opinion. So I had to buy this set in order to get him. So I don't mind the fact that they kind of forced me to buy a vehicle because, like I said, I kind of liked the idea of getting in on the ground floor of a new Masters of the Universe line and collecting it all. I was buying a lot of the Origins, the classics figures a couple years ago, but they didn't make many vehicles, and the ones they did were really expensive. So these things here, well, they're all still relatively affordable. I really kind of wanted a full collection, but as I mentioned, my interest was kind of waning on the vehicles. So sticking a figure in there forced me to buy the vehicle. I'm actually kind of into it, and I kind of wish some of those other vehicles that I was humming and hawing about had figures with them too, because then it would be an easy decision, and I would pull the trigger. So anyway, here's Mekaneck in the box. Like all these Origins figures, it's got some really nice artwork. On the top of the box, you see Mekaneck driving the vehicle there. The artwork carries around the side, but there's not much to see there. Not much to see here, just some rocks. And then there's some more original artwork on the back. So you see Mekaneck is kind of hiding out there. He's got his ground ripper or his road ripper parked, and then he's spying on, it looks like some snake men up here in the corner. So yeah, you can see Tongue Lasher and King Hiss, and you can see Eternia off in the background. So oftentimes these little, the artwork on these boxes and on these blister cards, they hint at figures that are coming out soon. So we've already got King Hiss and Tongue Lasher, but the Eternia playset is yet to be released, but it is coming out, I think, due next year. And there's some, it shows you some of the action features on the back of the box as well. So his neck, the old figure, his neck extended by hitting a little wheel on his back. This one doesn't do that. You actually have to like add a piece to the neck to make his neck extend. You can also see that something happens with this vehicle. I'm not sure if it's a pullback and rev feature. What does it say? It just says replace with second mantle. So yeah, it looks like you just have optional. That's what this thing here is. So it looks like you have two different head shapes. So maybe one's kind of bird-like and the other one's maybe kind of wolf-like. So I guess that's kind of cool. But yeah, I don't see anything on there about it having a rev back feature. So anyway, that's Mekaneck and the Ground Ripper inside of the box. So we'll pop this guy open in a minute and take a closer look at him. But first, my other vehicles. So this toy came out last year and I passed on it, even though it came with a figure. So this is Tila and Zor. And Zor is the bird figure that the sorceress sometimes transforms into. But it is a toy from the vintage toy line. I never had the vintage Zor. Now, Teela is a key character, so, you know, she's a must-have. The only thing is I already have the original carded Teela they released. And this figure didn't look different enough for me to really justify it. Like, I really didn't care that much about Zor, the bird, for the price that this set was going to cost me, because I never saw it locally. I had to order it online. I had to pay for shipping and customs and all that stuff. And I just really couldn't justify it for a bird and a Teela that looked essentially the same as the Teela I already had. So I was going to pass on this, but obviously I didn't. So here you see there's some, again, some nice artwork on the top with Tila and Zor, and some artwork on the back with Zor and the evil bird Screech coming in to attack him. And meanwhile, Teela is fighting Skeletor down there in front of Castle Grayskull. And then down here you see it talks about how he has the clip-on armor, and you can kind of hold the little handle over there, I guess, to make him fly around your room. Now, there's a little bit of artwork on the side, a little dragon over there. Nothing to see over here. So yeah, this is pretty cool, and I'm eager to get it open and see what it's all about. The bird looks very much like the vintage toy in that it doesn't look like they've increased the articulation any. The bird in the original Masters of the Universe line was just a repaint of an eagle figure from the like Big Jim toy line, and that's why the bird was so kind of oversized compared to He-Man, because the eagle was kind of in scale with a 12-inch Big Jim figure. They released it with Masters of the Universe. It came across like this really big bird. Now in the cartoon, Zor was just kind of a normal sized bird, like more like a falcon or a parrot or something that could sit on your arm, not this big oversized thing. But yeah, the vintage toy didn't have any articulation, and this one here doesn't look like they've added any. It seems like it would have been a good opportunity for them to add joints for the wings to flap or something, since they've added knees and elbows and everything to the human characters. But it looks like they've stuck with a pretty classic design and maybe even used the original mold. I'm not sure. I don't have one of the originals to compare it to. But anyway, so that's Tila and Zor. We'll take a closer look at them in a second. But the reason why I did buy this, after initially passing on it last year when it came out, is I had mentioned before about how sometimes these packaging have little Easter eggs for upcoming figures. So at the time when this came out, we didn't know we were getting Screech. But the fact that they showed him on the packaging there was a good indicator that he was coming down the pipeline. And sure enough, this year they released a 2-pack with Screech and Skeletor. And this is another one I could have maybe passed on if it was just a standard repaint of Skeletor, because I already have several Skeletors in my collection. And again, the bird doesn't actually excite me all that much. But this Skeletor, even though it's a kind of a minor difference, he's got an articulated jaw. So his mouth opens and closes. And I think that's the first time we've got that on a Skeletor. So even though otherwise it's pretty much the same figure that I already have, his armor is a little bit of a different color. It's got a bit of a wash on it. But really it's that articulated jaw that was the selling point to me. So I thought, I'm definitely going to buy this set for the Skeletor. And once I knew I had committed to buying this, I pre-ordered it from Big Bad Toy Store. I thought, well, if I'm going to get this one, I might as well get Teela and Zor so I can have both birds. So that's what really pushed me over the line to go back and get this one. So anyway, there you see the artwork on the top, Skeletor and Screech. And again on the back, Skeletor, he's releasing Screech out there. And now it's Zor that's swooping in for the sneak attack. And again, sort of the same graphics on the back here. It shows how the armor can be placed on him, or how you can use it as like a little handle to have him fly around your bedroom. So pretty cool stuff. So there we go. Those are my 3 vehicles in the box. Now we're going to take a closer look at them outside of the packaging. So here is Mekaneck and the Ground Ripper outside of the packaging. Now, I did check. The Ground Ripper was indeed called the Road Ripper in the vintage toy line, so I am not sure why they changed it. But yeah, it's a cool little vehicle. There's lots of cool little sculpted detail in here. You can see it's got some stickers that represent various computer panels and stuff here. So that's cool. And I've talked before, this line is relatively affordable, and stuff like this allows it to be affordable, I guess, because it's just stickers. But it would have been nice and really elevated this toy, if they had painted all these little things. Like if these sculpted circles and pipes were all red and blue and silver and stuff, that would really, make this feel like much more value. But then they would probably jack up the price by 20 or 30 bucks or something. So I guess I'll take what I can get. It looks pretty good. The colors do definitely add some color to it. So yeah, not too bad. Yeah, the only thing, it doesn't have any guns or anything like that. It's got this little seat belt that you can stretch across and plug in like so to hold your guy in place. And the wheels turn so you can drive it across your kitchen floor. But it doesn't have the vintage ability where you put in the little plastic thing and you ripped it really fast so the Road Ripper would take off across the floor. So now it's all just works manually. And it does have the other head. Now I think this is a new concept. I don't believe that the prior Road Ripper had a swappable head. They've done this before with some of the hover sleds and stuff, where you can change out the head from a dragon to a fox or a snake or something. So yeah, I guess it makes sense that they carried that over into this vehicle. It allows for some customization if you wanted to buy a whole little squad of these guys. But it is kind of disappointing that this alternate head doesn't have any paint apps or any stickers. I don't know why you would want to change out this head, which at least has those big vibrant eyes, and it's got the panel on the back there. Okay, well actually look, I didn't even notice there is a sticker on the back of this head, but still no eyeballs or anything like that. It would have, I think, really helped if this thing had some eyes. And the other thing I think would have been nice is if they either packaged this thing alone. Now if they had, I probably wouldn't have even bothered to buy it. But if they're going to package it with a figure, maybe it would have been nice to package it with an army builder, like a horde trooper or a palace guard or something. Just that way you could kind of justify buying more than one, and you could customize the Road Ripper itself and kind of customize the driver. So yeah, the vehicle's not too bad. But for me, it was Mekaneck that was the real draw to this set. Mekaneck is in my mind, I consider an important character. You know, he was released in those first couple of key years of Masters of the Universe. Although I don't really have too many memories of him being integral to the cartoon or anything. I'm sure he was probably in a handful of episodes, but you know, he's not as important as, say, Teela or Man-at-Arms. You know, he was probably one of these guys that just showed up for a couple of episodes to help sell the toy, and that's about it. But you know, he is a cool character. I did have this guy when I was a kid. Now, I didn't actually have him when I was like little. When these figures would have came out in the early 80s, I didn't have him back then, so I didn't get a chance to like really play with him that much when I was into Masters of the Universe. I can't remember where he eventually came from. My younger brother, I think, might have actually had him when he came into our possession kind of after I had stopped playing Masters of the Universe. But anyway, I remember I broke him apart specifically because I made up a comic character when I was like a young man, I guess. And his name was Helicopter Man, and he was a big blue muscular guy. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to use this torso to create a custom Helicopter Man. So I might still have my Helicopter Man around somewhere. I don't think so, though. But anyway, so I destroyed my vintage Mekaneck, unfortunately. So I don't have him to show you. But he looked a lot like this. I don't recall if he had the kind of reflective goggles or not. But that's kind of cool. I think it kind of looks like it's vac metal or something for those pieces there. Like at first I thought it was maybe a sticker, but it actually does look to be the whole visor piece there. So that's kind of cool. He's got his classic kind of club weapon, although I don't think it's usually hollow like this. Like that's a little strange. The vintage one might have been like that. I don't know, but anyway, yeah, kind of a cool figure. I like him. Although one thing that does suck about some of these modern Masters of the Universe figures is that they have lost their play feature. Now, I don't have the vintage one, but what it did is when you spun him at the waist like this, his neck would extend up and down. So, you know, that had its downside too, that if you ever wanted Mekaneck to turn this way and you didn't want his head to shoot up, you didn't really have a choice. It kind of happened automatically. But there was kind of a charm to that. Now, I do have the Mekaneck from the 2002 line. And the 2002 was a lot more detailed. They were kind of stylized and a little bit of an anime look. I was a big fan of that line. And Mekaneck, you can see here, he looks great. He keeps all the classic, the classic look, but it's just updated, and he's just a more detailed figure. These guys had pretty limited articulation. There's no knees and elbows. Their arms only move forward, so they actually kind of move like vintage toys, but the sculpting was just top-notch. And you can see here, he still retains the spinning feature. So you turn his waist and his neck extends. And that's kind of the fun of Mekaneck. So, like with the vintage figure, sure, you can't have Mekaneck turn and look that way without his head popping up. You can't really prevent it from happening, but I think that's a fair trade-off to have that fun little feature. What you have to do with Mekaneck now, which isn't nearly as fun, is the neck pops off, and you pop his head off, and so you've got that extra piece. So you can play with him like so, and then all of a sudden you want him to extend his neck. You got to pop his head off and go add this extra piece and pop his head back on. So yeah, it's not nearly as immediate. So yeah, if I was a kid today playing with this toy, he definitely wouldn't have that same, tangible feeling of a play feature. Now another Mekaneck that I have that I'll bring out here is the Masters of the Universe Classics version. So the Classics is my preferred version of Masters of the Universe. They were out for about 10 years, and it's just a great figure. This is the first one to introduce the extending, like the add-on neck piece. But what was cool about him is so he comes with a neck piece very similar to what the Origins guy comes with. You can see that it is a bit longer, so he can extend his neck pretty well. But then he also came with this extension, and you can add them together, and you can get a really big neck. on your Mekaneck if you're so inclined. And this is how I display him in my collection. So let's see here. So let me put this guy's neck back on him. So yeah, I think the idea behind Mekaneck having the extended neck was that he could be kind of a spy. He could be used as a periscope type of thing. He could look up and see trouble coming in the distance. So you can see how this classics version would definitely be able to see trouble coming from a lot farther away than, oops, I'm gonna move my light there. But yeah, much taller Mekaneck. So it would have been kind of nice if they carried that through to this Origins version and gave him an optional extended piece so he could have a super extended neck. But anyway, this is good enough as it is. And yeah, he's pretty cool. I'm glad I got him. So now let's take a look at Tila and Zor. So here's Teela. Now she has got a white and a pretty bright yellow outfit on. She's got a pretty bright yellow sword to match the outfit. But yeah, she looks good. Now she still has pretty weird knees. Teela was in the very first wave of Origins figures, and I know a lot of people commented about how weird the knees were and that they kind of hoped that they would improve over time. They still look pretty weird. But yeah, so this is the figure I almost didn't buy because I didn't really think it was different enough from my other Teela. I didn't know if it was warranted. Now I should mention she has a few other accessories. She's got her kind of classic snake staff there with the like cobra on top. And she has the optional snake armor. So this is kind of a soft rubber. You put the belt around her waist, you put her face through there, and then she's got this like snake armor on. The same thing came with the last Teela, but I didn't put that on her either. And then she also has a sword, which she doesn't hold very well. So these are all the same accessories we get with the prior Teela. And here is the prior Teela. This is how I have her displayed in my collection. She's holding her shield. She's got her snake staff. I actually don't remember if she came with a sword or not. She might not have. So that might be something new they've added to the new version. But I liked this figure quite a bit, maybe besides the weird knees. But I thought it looked good. So I thought that figure was a straight repaint of this, but I did notice that they went with more of a yellow than a gold, which I actually thought looked worse. So I didn't really want to spend my money on a lesser Teela. But I didn't realize that she actually had a whole new head sculpt. So you can see where this Teela's got her hair kind of in like a bun, which is more like the the classic look from the cartoon, classic figure. This Teela, she's got a different kind of tiara, and she's got her hair in a ponytail. And that's because this figure is supposed to be more modeled after her 2002 look, where Teela was a younger character. She had the ponytail. And yeah, so that alone kind of helps me justify buying the figure. So they've got different paint jobs. Besides the brighter yellow, you'll also notice that she's got the fur trim painted white on her boots, whereas this Teela doesn't. And yeah, the different head sculpts. So yeah, it looks good. Now it would have been kind of nice to get maybe a different body type, because we have seen this a couple of times. I've got a couple of Evil Lyns. You see she's got the exact same armor. We also have the Goddess, which is basically the exact same figure as Teela, just painted with green skin. And I think we had the same body used on maybe some of the Masters of the WWE figures. So it's, it's pretty played out, I guess. It would have been kind of nice to see them maybe change up the, the wrist guards, or maybe something a little different. But anyway, the different head is the biggest, that's the biggest, best change I guess I could ask for on a figure. I know parts reuse is going to happen, but when you get a brand new head, then it, it kind of makes it feel like a new figure. So I guess if they were going to change just one thing, I'm glad they gave us a new head. So then let's talk about Zor. So as I mentioned before, this is pretty much how the vintage Zor looked. He clips onto this display base here. So that just stands like so. The figure itself is not really articulated. He's got these soft rubbery wings that you kind of clap together there. And he retains a play feature, just like the vintage toy. You'll notice one leg has this little lever. So when you hold the lever like that, you can make his wings flap. So there's a little thing inside that pushes up when you push the lever, so that makes his wings go. Now it's not it's not a great play feature, but it's it's kind of cool and stuff. If I was a kid, I would have appreciated making him flap around like that. But anyway, for a modern Zor figure, I probably would have preferred something with articulated wings, so you could fold them over, or you could pose him with the wings up, stuff like that. Maybe a head that turned around, but yeah, there's really no articulation on this. So it looks good in the paint job and everything. And then he has this armor piece, which again is true to the vintage figure. So his head just fits through there, and add some like laser beams to him or something. And then it looks like this clip should go around his tail. So this would sit flush on his back. But I tried to do that, and these clips are really kind of hard plastic that I wear. If I try and pull them apart, they'll break. And also where his back is kind of a soft, rubbery plastic, I feel like if I try and force it in there, it might rip. So I think I'm just going to leave it like that. And maybe that's how it's intended, but it looks kind of weird, and it just kind of rests on top of, it could kind of fall off relatively easily. So if the intent is that this was supposed to go on his back, I wish these clips were a little bit wider so that wasn't so awkward to fit around his tail. But otherwise, he's cool. I never had Zor as a kid. He's, a big bird doesn't really excite me all that much, but it is a classic, it's a classic toy. And it was in the cartoons, it like turned into the sorceress and stuff. I think when the toy was first released, that wasn't really the intention. It was just supposed to be a big mythical bird. It does kind of remind me, I think in like mythology or something, they were called rocks, like ROCs, which are just big giant birds. I mostly know that from the vintage or the original Clash of the Titans movie. A big rock comes and steals away the princess. So that's kind of cool. I'm a big fan of Clash of the Titans movie, so having a big giant bird like that, that's kind of a callback to Clash of the Titans. It's kind of neat. Now, the classics version, which I was talking up a minute ago with Mekaneck, they released, bigger, new and improved versions of all the characters. But Zor, surprisingly, kind of got a downgrade. So I have two Zors from the classics line. First up is this one. So, it's an orange and white bird. It's lacking the blue, so it's not nearly as colorful. And his wings are articulated, so you can do that thing I was talking about where you can pose the wings up or pose them down. And that's kind of what I would have liked to have seen on this figure. But you can see it's quite a bit smaller. It's like more of an actual size of a falcon, so it could sit on a character's wrist or something like that. But it's not nearly as grandiose as the vintage or the new Origins version of Zor. And then I got another version based on the Filmation look. So this figure looks great. It's like right out of the cartoon. But it's really just kind of a hunk of plastic. Its wings are folded in, which I think is nice, because it especially looks good sitting on his little display base like that. So it looks good in kind of a scene, but you couldn't really play with it. Like if you wanted this bird to go flying around, it looks kind of weird to just be flying like that. So yeah, it's good for just sitting in place on its little stand. But I wish it had articulated wings. It would have been nice maybe if these figures came with interchangeable wings, kind of like the Freedom the Eagle from the G.I. Joe Classified line. He came with wings that are out like this, and also wings that are tucked to his side like this. So you can display him either way. So that would have been ideal. I'm not surprised they didn't do it for the classics version, because that was really just kind of a little accessory thrown in with a character. But with this one here, like this was a big box set. You paid a bit of a premium for it. I think they maybe had an opportunity to go all out with Zor, make it articulated or give him swappable wings. And yeah, I kind of feel they dropped the ball on this guy a little bit. I think he could have been more impressive. But anyway, why don't we move on to the final figure. Now, before I bring Skeletor out, I'm just going to talk about Screech. So Screech is the evil bird, and in the vintage line, he was just a repaint of Zor. So it makes sense that that's what we get here. Now, in the Classics line, there was a new version of Screech as well, which I do have, but I forgot to grab him. But it looked just like this. It was small. He was like blue and purple. So other than that little Screech, this is my first time having a big full-size Screech because I did not have the vintage one. And there's not a whole lot to say about this guy because he is the exact same as this. So I guess it depends on which colors you prefer if you were going to only buy one of these guys. But, you know, he stands on his perch nicely. And I should mention they clip on there pretty good. The fact that, you know, it's kind of got those little ridges on it. Their claws kind of click in place there. So, okay, you can hold this guy upside down and he's not going to fall off. You kind of slide them off the side, I think is the best way to do it. And then you've got the bird. He flaps his wings with the little lever on his leg. So, there you go. And he has the same kind of jetpack with the lasers on the side here. I also can't get this to clip around his tail, at least not without fear of breaking something. But yeah, he looks pretty cool. So yeah, that is Screech. So maybe I'll just clear these birds out of here so we can talk about the new Skeletor. So here is the new Skeletor that came packaged with Screech. And, you know, he's pretty cool. He looks pretty much like a classic Skeletor. Blue, purple, you know, kind of yellow, green skull face. So all those classic elements are there. But he does have a bit of a deco change. So yeah, pretty cool. Getting variants of Skeletor is by no means uncommon. There was quite a few of them, even in the vintage line, and then in the 2000X line and the Classics line. You know, they always make multiple Skeletors. The Origins line has only been going for a few years, and I already have quite a few Skeletors. I have more Skeletors than anybody else. For example, I recently got this guy that I haven't even opened yet. So this here is Dragon Blaster Skeletor. I'm saving him to review for my next Masters of the Universe video. And then there is the classic Skeletor from Wave 1. So this figure probably most closely resembles the vintage toy. And then I've got this version here. This is Keldor, which is Skeletor before he gets his face melted, but he has an optional Skeletor head. I actually used the other head from that figure and put it on this Battle Armor Skeletor body, because this figure originally had a head that looked pretty much just like this one. So I replaced it with that one because this one's really cool with the jewel eyes. I've got like the 2000X styled Skeletor, so this is kind of a little bit more of a, I was going to say modern interpretation, but 2002, I don't know if you can still say that's modern anymore. Then I have this goofy one that looks like he's wearing a glittery sports bra, but this is Terror Claws Skeletor, so he's got these big old claws on him. And then lastly, I've got the Snake Armor Skeletor with this kind of snaky helmet on. So I have got a pretty big crew of Skeletors. You know, they're all different. I like all of them for different reasons. And yeah, this guy here, I like him quite a bit too, and I'll show you why right now. So as I talked about when I was showing you this toy in the package, you know, the Skeletor isn't really that different enough. If this guy had been sold on his own, I don't know if I would have bought him just because of this paint job. And really, Screech wasn't a big selling feature for me either, because like I said, I don't care about the birds all that much. So for me, what really got me to buy this guy was the promise of an articulated jaw, which I don't think Skeletor has ever had before. I could be wrong about that, but I have multiple Skeletors from the the vintage line, the classics line, all those other guys from the Origins line, the 2000X line, and yeah, I think this is a first. And I'll admit, once I opened him up, it was a little underwhelming, maybe, but he does have the articulated jaw, so now his mouth can close. But this is what's kind of a bummer about it, is you'll notice it's a very loose joint, so it falls open. So I would have liked it a lot more if I could close it like that and then, you know, move it at my leisure to make him talk or something. But yeah, it just sort of hangs open. It's cool that I can kind of force it closed, but it doesn't stay there very well. I don't know if that's going to be like that for all of you, or if I just have one with a particularly loose joint. But mine guy started doing that as soon as I opened them. So that's a bit of a bummer because that was the main reason I wanted this figure. But But anyway, he's still cool. Because it does have all the classic Skeletor designs, it's kind of hard to, complain about. If you didn't have any other Skeletors in your collection, this guy would be perfectly fine as your go-to standalone Skeletor. He has got his Havoc staff with the ram's head. He's got the power sword. He's got the kind of loincloth, the armor, everything you remember from classic Skeletor. Now, the one thing that is kind of different about him, besides the jaw, is the paint job. And it's by no means a better purple. It's a different purple. I think the classic Skeletor with that purple and blue, those colors look perfect together. This one here is a lighter blue skin, and it's a lighter purple armor. But what makes it a little bit more unique is it's got that rusty colored wash over it. And I don't even know if it's fair to call it a wash. Generally, washes kind of bring out all the detail, and you really see it in all of the kind of sculpted detail here. This almost just looks like an afterthought, like somebody just airbrushed some rusty blobs onto this guy. It's kind of sitting on top of his hood, and then doesn't really carry over anywhere else. There's none on the back. There's some on the head of the Havoc staff, some on his armor, some on the loincloth bit. But yeah, it's not really the same type of wash we see on other, more detailed, NECA figures or something, where you would get a black wash over this whole armor, and it would really kind of fill in some of these lines of the sculpted detail. This doesn't quite accomplish that, but I still think it looks cool. I do like that rusty effect. It makes the armor look weathered. It almost looks like I left this toy out in my backyard for the summer or something. But yeah, he's pretty cool. I'm not going to complain about another Skeletor. So I don't know if I have a whole lot more to say about these guys, but overall, all three figures that I got here today, as well as their vehicles/sidekicks, they're pretty cool. So that was my review of my latest Masters of the Universe Origins vehicles, or beasts, or whatever, from Mattel. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, which you'll find below. Leave me comments. And yeah, if you haven't checked out my other Masters of the Universe Origins videos, I suggest that you do. I've got a whole playlist with them all on there, so you can find them on my channel if you look around. So thank you very much for watching. Make sure to come back soon, as I'm sure I'll have another video posted probably within a week or so. And yeah, hopefully by then I'll be back down in my usual surroundings of the toy room, so it'll feel a little bit more like a true toy channel and not like me sitting up here with flowers and decorative jugs and other weird stuff. So yeah, I'll see you then. Until then, ciao.